The regular meeting of the Mishawaka Common Council for Tuesday, April 19th will please come to order. Good evening to everybody who is in attendance. If you would, please take a moment to check your cell phone and make sure that you have silenced it or at least put it on vibrate. We appreciate that. And then with regard to those of you who are participating remotely, good evening. Once again, we will ask you to place your microphone on mute during the meeting with the exception of any public hearing. At the appropriate point in the public hearing, I will invite the public to unmute their microphone for purposes of submitting any comments they wish to make, one person at a time. All persons wishing to make public comments will be asked to first state their name and address for the record, and after completing the comment, members of the public will once again be asked to place their microphone on mute, and we thank everyone for their cooperation with this evening. And with that, if you would, please join us in rising for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. DeMade?
Here.
Mr. Hazen?
Here.
Mr. Mamalenti?
Here.
Mr. Benicki?
Here.
Mr. Emmons?
Here.
Mr. Belovich?
Here.
Mr. Compton? Mrs. Volker?
Here.
Mr. Hicksenbach?
Here. Approval of the minutes of our regular meeting of April 11th, 2022. Are there any additions or corrections? Then hearing none, the minutes will stand approved as received from the clerk's office. Petitions, communications, remonstrance, and memorial.
Yes, Mr. President, I have a letter from the Board of Zoning Appeals regarding their recommendation from their April 12th, 2022 meeting. Honorable members, a regular meeting of the Mishawaka Board of Zoning Appeals was held on the above referenced date, at which time the following use variances were considered. Appeal number 22-05, an appeal submitted by Mishawaka Commons LLC, requesting a use variance for 502 West McKinley Avenue, the former CVS, to permit an event center, assembly hall, with bingo and C2 shopping center commercial district. The board, with a vote of 5-0, forwarded a favorable recommendation to the Common Council, subject to the following conditions of approval, if I may omit reading those conditions.
Please do so.
Thank you. Appeal number 22-07, an appeal submitted by Top View Holding Group LLC, requesting a use variance for 309 Bittersweet Road to allow 3 tenants in a building in the C1 General Commercial District. The board, with a vote of 5-0, forwarded a favorable recommendation. This is signed by Carrie Myers, Administrative Planner.
Thank you. Report of special committees. Hearing none. We also have no ordinances on first reading this evening, so we will move into resolutions.
Resolution R 2022-08, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana, approving a petition of the Mishawaka Board of Zoning Appeals for the property located at 502 West McKinley Avenue. This is a use variance to permit an event center, assembly hall, in a C2 shopping center commercial at 502 West McKinley Avenue.
Thank you. We will now open the public hearing on proposed resolution 2022-08. Anyone wishing to speak in favor, if you would, please come forward to the podium and begin by stating your name and address for the record.
Yeah, my name is Terry Harper, and my address is 10231 Conover Drive, Granger, Indiana. I currently have the Celebrations Palace here on 5th and Laurel with that one, and we've been doing a non-for-profit organization there, and we're looking for more parking and more space over there, and that's why we want to move the place to the old CVS over there to run an assembly hall over there, so I have some more parking. I still do the non-for-profit for Mishawaka over here at this place, and small weddings and small events like bridal showers at Celebrations. So Celebrations will still be open, just wanted to move the operation over there so it's not so congested for public safety.
All right. Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Harper? Mr. Benicki?
Yes.
Yes.
There's been some concerns with the parking lots. Are you responsible for the repairs, or is there
an owner of the property?
So I am going to be working with the owner of that property to get that all repaired. And that was one of the things that the Bo, we talked about, that we're going to actually walk through on Thursday to make sure that parking lot is remedied.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Volker?
Hi, thank you. I was reading that you're planning on hosting bingo at this assembly hall.
That'll be one of the events.
So what other things will you be doing there?
We'll have some, like, gatherings, you can do luncheons, there'll just be a place for organizations to be able to rent.
So just a higher capacity place than you have currently at Celebrations?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
And tell me, you said that you have a nonprofit. Is your business nonprofit, or do you host nonprofits? What do you mean by that?
Well, one of the businesses that rents for Celebrations for me is non-for-profit, and they run the bingo hall, which I'm involved in with my brother
Okay,
at that one. So we wanted to move that so it's not so crowded over here.
okay,
That's what we wanted to do, to have a bigger space
okay. All right.
for that.
Thank
So it's one of our renters.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Other questions for Mr. Harper? Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
Is there anyone else in the chambers this evening who wishes to speak in favor of the proposed resolution? If so, please come forward to the podium. Then is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in favor of the proposed resolution? Is there anyone physically present who wishes to speak in opposition to the proposed resolution? Please come forward. And is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in opposition to the proposed resolution? Thank you. Are there any council members who wish to speak? Mr. Mamalenti?
Mr. Hicksonball, I just wanted to thank Mr. Harper for the work that he's done with the celebrations once you guys took over. A lot of cosmetic improvements, very refreshing on some of the events that I've gone to. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments from the council? Hearing none, then I call for the question.
Question?
Madam Clerk, would you please poll the council?
Mrs. DeMade?
Yes.
Mr. Hazen?
Yes.
Mr. Mamalenti?
Yes.
Mr. Benicki?
Yes.
Mr. Emmons?
Yes.
Mr. Belovich?
Yes.
Mrs. Volker?
Yes.
Mr. Hicksonball?
Yes.
The resolution passes 8-0. Resolution R 2022-09, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana, approving a petition of the Mishawaka Board of Zoning Appeals for the property located at 309 Bittersweet Road. This is a use variance to allow 3 tenants in one building in a C1 General Commercial District at 309 Bittersweet Road.
Thank you. We will now open the public hearing on proposed resolution 2022-09. Anyone wishing to speak in favor, if you would, please come forward to the podium.
Yes, my name is Michael Hewlett, address 51301 Golden Oak Court in Granger, Indiana. Yeah, so the property that we're speaking about is the former Family Dollar across from Martin's at the corner of Lincoln Way and Bittersweet. If you're familiar with that area, you know that we made some significant changes to the exterior and the interior of the building. There is a dental office in the north side of the building that we've occupied for the last year, and we have 2 spaces for 2 tenants that are looking to lease the other 2 remaining suites in the building. We have 2 tenants that have submitted those letter of intents to lease the property. We just are seeking this variance to allow those 2 additional tenants in addition to the dental office that is currently there. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any questions from the council for Mr. Hewlett? And if this is already in the staff report and I missed it, I'll apologize, but are you at liberty, since we're a curious bunch, to tell us who the prospective tenants are for this building?
So one is a medical group, physical therapist group. Another is a telephone retail company.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Any other questions for this gentleman? Then thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else physically present who wishes to speak in favor of the proposed resolution? If so, please come forward. Is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in favor of the proposed resolution? Is there anyone physically present who wishes to speak in opposition to the proposed resolution? And is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in opposition? Thank you. Are there any council members who wish to speak? If not, then I call for the question.
Question?
Madam Clerk, would you please poll the council?
Mrs. Demade?
Yes.
Mr. Hazen?
Yes.
Mr. Mamalenti?
Yes.
Mr. Benicki?
Yes.
Mr. Emmons?
Yes.
Mr. Belovich?
Yes.
Mrs. Volker?
Yes.
Mr. Hixenbaugh?
Yes.
Opposed, resolution passes 8-0.
Ordinances on second reading.
Proposed ordinance number 2022-08, an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of Mishawaka, amending the uniform schedule of fees.
Thank you. May we have the committee report, please?
Yes, Mr. President. To the members of the Common Council of the City of Mishawaka, your Committee on Budget and Finance, to whom was referred the matter of proposed ordinance number 2022-08, report that they have examined said matter and that in their opinion it should be adopted. This is signed by the entire committee, and I move for its acceptance.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. A motion has been made and seconded to approve the committee reports. Any additional questions or comments from the council? Hearing none, then all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We will now move into the second reading and public hearing on proposed ordinance 2022-08. Anyone wishing to speak in favor, if you would, please come forward to the podium. Good evening, Chief.
Good evening. Brian Thomas, EMS Chief for Mishawaka Fire Department. I'd like to speak in favor of this, these fee increases. Around 10 years ago, when we did a substantial increase, we tried to base them on a percentage of the Medicare allowable, so that would make it easier as we move forward. So as Medicare has increased their fees over the last 10 years, we're just asking to have that increase follow along with that.
All right. Thank you. Any questions for Chief Thomas? Chief, can you summarize, and if this is a question better posed to the controller, we can, ask Mr. Prince or the mayor to step in, but the fees that we accrue for ambulance service, how are those used within our budget, and what, in other words, what do we do with the money that we collect for those fees?
I can't speak to the specific as in percentages or exact amounts, but there is some that goes towards the general fund, and then we also have a reverting vehicle fund that goes towards.
So that's used to replace and upgrade our equipment, particularly vehicles, as
Yes.
they age?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for Chief Thomas? Mr. Mamalenti?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a quick question. Thank you, Chief, for the presentation. Just for some of those folks that are out listening, so if somebody's on Medicare, will their price of service increase?
No, it's all very confusing, very hard. That's, why we hire a firm to help us with this. There's someone's on Medicare, Medicaid, Blue Cross Blue Shield, all those are set, those fees. So, we could bill someone $10,000, Medicare is going to give us the amount that they give us. We just use that as a basis. Medicare sets most of the billing rules out there, so we just tag on to their increases for inflation and such.
So just for layman's purposes, Medicare is raising their rates, and we were below that, so we're just kind of raising ours to meet that same threshold.
Yeah. I don't remember the exact date, but it's probably been about 10 years since we've done that. We all know from the news and such that our expenses has gone up greatly with medical supplies, if we're even able to get them sometimes. So we're just trying to follow with inflation there.
Thank you, Chief.
Almost 12 years.
Mrs. Volker?
Thank you. Hi, Chief Thomas. I just
Hi.
have kind of a follow-up question to Mr. Mamalenti's. So Medicare has to change their prices annually,
It-
don't they?
They do. You know, most of the time they go up. I know over the last 10, 12 years, there was actually one time that it decreased. Most of the time, it's not very substantial, you know, and, you know, as far as when Blue Cross Blue Shield, Indiana, Medicaid, and then they made some, actually more than just annually, they did it during COVID, they made an increase at that time as well.
So is this, just to follow up on that, then, is this something that you look at on an annual basis and decide whether it's worth it to go through the process of increasing the fees, or how do you decide when to do that?
Yeah, I think so. You know, if it's going to make us one extra dollar, you know, I don't know that's worthwhile, but over a period of years and you know, just told it's closer to 12 years, so we'll be here again sometime in the future.
Thank you.
Mr. Belowitz.
Chief, so you think that every 10 years is frequent enough to look at this, or should we be looking at it, you know, maybe every 4 or 5 years?
That's probably more realistic, you know, that we should do it probably more often. And, you know, we will do that. We do evaluate it every year. We send out, we sit down with our vendor and they give us recommendations for where they feel our fees should be. And we're still within that range. Now we're at the lower end of the range instead of the higher, and we leave money on the table.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Other questions for Chief Thomas? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else physically present who wishes to speak in favor of the proposed ordinance? Please come forward.
Good evening, Mr. President, council members. Dave Wood, Mayor, here to speak in favor of proposed ordinance number 2022-08. First of all, I want to thank Chief Thomas and for his outstanding leadership, and all of our crew who operate our EMS division and provide critical service, especially throughout the pandemic. You know, I would put our service up against anyone, anywhere that we provide to our citizens. As you know, our calls are going up quite substantially, 17% just last year alone, and that continues a trend where they're going up and often into double-digit percentages. As you also know, our general fund is quite tight between our obligations, bringing in a little less money than what we're spending, what we have obligated. How do you square those two? Well, we need to hire police officers and firefighters, and we have a general fund that can't support hiring that. So how are we looking to do that? Well, in my State of the City, I announced a plan to hire 6 new firefighters, 3 new police officers. And since we can't necessarily support that out of our general fund, how are we going to do that? The average citizen might look to downtown and see, you know, well, gosh, there's you know, $15 million being spent in a park, or see road improvements and think, well, gosh, well, how can the city not hire police or firemen when they're doing all these things? Well, those are TIF funds. By state law, they are dedicated to capital projects and have to be used within a certain district, and we cannot hire police and fire out of those same funds. So that leaves us back to general fund. We're tight, so I outlined a plan to use ARP funding for a 3-year commitment to hire 3 officers, increased our shift strength from 10 to 11, and then also to hire 3 of the 6 firefighters that we need. Get 3 out there. To hire the other 3, we wanted to increase these rates. Now, we haven't done it in 10 years. We could look at it more often. We try to compare ourselves with what our neighbors are spending. These funds go into our general fund, and that's where our payroll comes out of. And so it is going into the same place where we are paying for our salaries for our firefighters and our police officers out of. So, 75% plus of our general fund goes to paying payroll for our publics, and most of our payroll is public safety, and they make the highest amount of payroll. And so this is our plan to get on board those 6 firemen. We want to do that with next year's budget, get it into next year's budget. This will help us to start saving for that now. We have to then work through the collective bargaining process, perhaps with a memorandum of understanding so that we can do this with the union. We also have to hire the firefighters and the police officers. We can't just snap our fingers and have that done. It takes us the better part of a year to bring a firefighter or a police officer on board with all of the training, and especially going to places like Academy and all of that. So, and then we have retirements that are upcoming. So we have to fill the retirements before we can hire the new ones. And so we're planning to add the staff. It will happen. It will not happen overnight. So, but we're committed to doing those things in a growing city that demands more and more of our incredible service. So we will begin the process of right now with, if the rates are approved, we will start working on the rest of the plan that we have outlined.
All right, thank you. Mr. Memolenti.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mayor, for your presentation as well. And I think you answered the question in your presentation, but to go back to your State of the City, I recall you mentioning that some of this would require some negotiations with I think the FOP. I didn't know if those discussions had commenced yet, or if that's even,
So it's a collective bargaining year for the FOP.
Okay.
So we will have those discussions as part of the collective bargaining process. And as far as the fire goes, this is not a fire collective bargaining year. So we will, first thing we'll do is talk to the membership there, and we'll have to, come to some kind of agreement there that hopefully we can do it through a memorandum of understanding of some kind. And we want to, the importance of getting those 6 firefighters hired next year is the goal is to add a 4th full-time ambulance. So we have 3 full-time now. We have a need to have a 4th full-time ambulance. Now that ambulance too, we have mutual aid agreements throughout the county with other departments. And so as our our firefighters go out and we make calls, in some cases outside of the city of Mishawaka, we are still capturing those fees as well.
thank you.
Thank you. Other questions for Mayor Wood? Mr. Hazen.
I think we need to share with the public and everybody that you could say the shift strength could be 15. Doesn't mean it's going to be 15. It has to be agreed on by the FOP.
Right.
And a lot of people don't understand that sometimes the policemen want more officers on the road, but it also, they want more time off too. So we can't hire more men just to give time off is what, I mean, it's a difficult situation to navigate through.
Right.
I think people need to understand.
Well, that's exactly right. So we could hire more officers today. That doesn't mean they're going to be on the road tomorrow. We have to negotiate with the FOP getting those extra officers on the street. And so for me, conditionally will be that if we're going to go through the process of adding more officers to our budget, we will then want to make sure that we get those officers out by contract on the street. And so that's the process we're going to be going through.
All right, thank you. Other questions for Mayor Wood? Well, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Thank you. None of us, and I suspect you included, like to consider raising any fees at any time, but if we're going to do it to remain market competitive and be compensated in a fair manner for the service we provide, that certainly makes some sense. And I applaud the creativity to use this revenue to directly support those who are providing the service. So I think it's a creative way for us to be able to beef up our manpower. I'm confident you'll be able to work through all those negotiations with our friends in the public safety unions and be able to bring this to fruition. But thank you for the work that you and your administration did to bring this to us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else present who wishes to speak in favor of the proposed ordinance? If so, please come forward. Then is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in favor of the proposed ordinance? Is there anyone present who wishes to speak in opposition to the proposed ordinance? And is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in opposition? Are there any council members who wish to speak? If not, then I call for the question.
Question.
Madam Clerk, would you please poll the council?
Mrs. DeMade?
Yes.
Mr. Hazen?
Yes.
Mr. Mamalenti?
Yes.
Mr. Beninky?
Yes.
Mr. Emmons?
Yes.
Mr. Belovich?
Yes.
Mrs. Volker?
Yes.
Mr. Hixenbach?
Yes.
Proposed ordinance passes 8-0.
Thank you. We'll now move into privilege of the floor. At this time, members of the public are invited to the podium to speak with respect to non-agenda items only under privilege of the floor. And we will also extend that invitation to anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak under privilege of the floor. Thank you. We'll now move into unfinished business, of which there is none. New business. Is there any new business to come before the council?
New business?
New business. Mr.
Yes.
Mamalenti.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a brief reminder that the neighborhood watch meeting for Twin Branch area and the entire city are welcome as well. Will be tomorrow evening, April 20th at 7 o'clock at the fire station number 4. And I'm proud to announce our speaker tomorrow evening will be our own President Hixenball. He'll be discussing kind of the roles and the rules and the authorities of the council. Very exciting stuff. I heard him speak at Mr. Emmons's meeting. Very informative. I think everybody will enjoy it. And while we're on that topic, the next speaker for May 18th meeting will be our very own Mayor Wood. He'll be giving a condensed, very condensed, very condensed state of the city. That will be May 18th at 7 o'clock, also at station number 4. So 2 great speakers lined up back to back, and look forward to seeing all that are willing to participate. All are welcome. Thank you much.
Thank you, and thank you for the invitation. Mr. Emmons.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a reminder that the First District Neighborhood Meeting will be held this Thursday, the 21st of April, and our speaker will be Representative Maureen Bauer. We'll be there to talk about what happened down at the legislative session this year, the good news and the bad news of legislation that was passed or not passed, and why. So she'll be there to make a presentation and also answer the questions of concern about the legislation issues that were passed down in Indianapolis. So hope to see everybody at 7 o'clock at St. Babel's. And as usual, we'll have refreshments from West End Bakery. So look forward to seeing everybody there at 7 o'clock. All are welcome. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Emmons. Any other new business to come before the council? If not, then a motion to adjourn is in order. So moved. We are adjourned. Thank you, folks.